as Newcastle get the victory. Now, what that means is take a look at the top of the table. Newcastle, of course, looking to finish in the top 5. That win puts them above Manchester City now, 1 clear of the defending champions. Meanwhile, at the bottom of the table, no surprise that Leicester are in a lot of trouble. 17 points after 31 games. They find themselves, let's do some quick maths, 15 points off safety, and with 7 matches to play. Let's welcome in, shall we? Yeah, Aage Fjortoft is with us, Kieran Gibbs. Steve, there's one place to start. Can you just tactically break down how Newcastle did this against such a strong Leicester side?
Well, they turned up and Leicester didn't.
Game
over.
This was not good.
It was shockingly bad. I mean, Leicester, as they've done all season, going forward, don't look as though they have any sort of clue how to break anybody down. They can't even create a good opportunity. And then defensively, well, I mean, you talk about embarrassing amateur-type defending. And I guess the cherry on the top and the worst thing of all, it looks as though there's no fight.
No.
This was a training game for Newcastle. Nobody running around, angry, trying to get the teammates going. The fans, in fact, after the first goal went in...
Yeah, the white flags went up pretty much.
Yeah, they just kind of sat there and thought, do I go home or do I stay a bit longer? I mean, that was all they were thinking. Yeah, it was embarrassing.
Kieran, we all dream of being, well, I certainly dreamt, you obviously all did it, well done, of being a professional footballer.
Sorry about that.
Why are you so angry?
It's like most people's dream, if you're growing up, to be a professional footballer. But on days like this, it must just feel rancid if you're a Leicester player.
Oh, absolutely, Dan. I've been there. I've been there as a player. My first season at West Brom, so I know where those players are at in their minds. You know, nothing goes right for you when you're in that kind of form and your confidence is low, and you're coming up against a rampant Newcastle side that it's almost as if they're defeated before the game's even started, and it's a shame because, you know, of all of Leicester's success over the last decade, we're seeing how quickly things can change in this game, and the Premier League is the least forgiving league in the world, in my opinion.
And this game, again, like the boys were saying, it was just sad to watch them. There was white flags, there were everything. 8 home games, no wins, no goals. That's a new record in the top division in English football, ever. It's unbelievable, and there's so many paradoxes to this. Ruud van Nistelrooy, imagine him if he can't score goals, that's point 1. Imagine him being an Englishman who nobody knows. He would be fired ages ago. And this team is called the Foxes. I mean, on a good day, you can call them sheep. I've never seen that kind of performance. Give your fans something. I mean, I felt before the game today, maybe this could be a game that no. After 3 minutes, and the goals conceded, and then to just top it, they tried to play out from the back. And I can even play from any direction. That was sad. That was embarrassing. 100% with Stevie there.
But for Newcastle, Shaq, I think the big question surrounding them after the Carabao Cup was how are they going to react? Is there going to be a hangover after those celebrations? Back-to-back wins for them, very much now in the hunt for the top 5. Are they in your top 5?
They are. And to your point, I think the game immediately after the Cup final win, I think was Brentford. That it was a test, kind of given who Brentford have shown themselves to be over the last couple of seasons. But they come through that one quite well. They come through that one. This game, it's hard to overstate how poor Leicester were, or to the point that Newcastle didn't have to get out of first gear.
There are no easy games in the Premier League.
Oh, let me tell you something. if that cliche were true, beat whoever said it with the video of this game.
Wow.
It really was that poor performance. But to your point, the question was always, you get that silverware, how do you respond? You're still within touching distance of the top 4 or top 5. Do you fall off the pace? Kind of give them what some maybe were expecting, if not hoping for, in terms of a hangover. But Newcastle have coped with those 2 games and now are back down to earth, kind of refocused on the job at hand. and have it in their hands to do. Now, it's not an easy run-in for Newcastle, as we've been discussing last week, but still, you prefer to have your own destiny in your own hands. Right now, Newcastle can't ask for anything more. And the one thing you do know is going to St James's Park, this crowd will turn up regardless. Given that cup win, expect St James's Park to be as loud, as vocal, as supportive as they ever have been.
OK, so let's just remind you how things look at the top of the table. Liverpool, of course, are fine. Arsenal as well. Nottingham Forest, I think, have secured enough points to say that the top three will be in the Champions League next season. Chelsea, Newcastle, Manchester City, Aston Villa. You've got a feeling it's those four teams that are vying for those two remaining Champions League spots next season. Kieran, which two sides do you think will get them?
I think Chelsea fall out. I think the last time I'd done the show, I backed Chelsea to be
win
in
the
it,
league.
But I think I have to say, no, not to win the league. But I have to say, I think with Newcastle, I think five of Newcastle's last 8 games are at home, which I think if I'd have said the same for Chelsea, I don't think it would have mattered as much. But certainly for Newcastle, that's a huge advantage. And we know how much of an influence it is at St James's Park, and I can imagine how rocking their last few home games are going to be. So for me, they're with the form they're on, I think they've won 10, 11 wins in the last 14. Eddie Howe's just got a firm grip on their form at the moment, so I don't think he's going to let that go. And then I'm gonna go Chelsea to fall out and City to be in.
To City to be in. Obviously, Jan, you were at that thriller yesterday. Did you see enough sparkle from Manchester City to think that they can go on a run and make sure they finish in these Champions League places?
I didn't see anything. I was following some German games on my iPhone. I didn't see. That was the most boring game I've seen in my life. And last week I said passionately after that win against Brentford for Newcastle, I think that Newcastle could be in there, and I had Manchester City. But if I can use the terminology of power ranking of Shaka, I have to change my team now. I will take City out because that was terrible. I mean, there was nothing. I've never seen in one game so many great players losing the ball so many times. And Manchester City, I know that this fixture list is good for them. Crystal Palace on Saturday are going to be there. At least there will be one Norwegian. I just feel that they don't have that's what I need at the moment. But they need to prove us wrong. But well, if that at Old Trafford, imagine if Manchester United had one striker who had 1.0 DNA of scoring goals. They would have lost that game big time, as I tipped last week, by the way, boys. But let's go. Keep on with the show.
Yeah, we remember that. You tipping United to win. But they didn't, Jan, so there you go. So who have you got then, finishing in this top 5? Newcastle, and who's your other side?
Aston Villa. I went to Villa Park. That was a good game. Remember, he changed 8 players. 8 players he changed. I think in this stage of the season, it's all about momentums. So Aston Villa got the momentum now. We'll just have to see how much that these 2 games against PSG and the semi-final will take out of them. But how they're running now and how Emery kind of organized that team is very, very impressive.
Stevie, who have you got?
I've got Newcastle, but I keep switching with City.
Yeah.
You know, I think a couple of weeks ago, Nathan and I said City weren't going to make it.
Right.
Then the following day, Nathan and I were back on, and I've thought about it overnight, and I changed my mind, and I've gone the other way again. I mean, as bad as they were against Man United, they were horrendous last week at home to Leicester.
Yeah.
I mean, they had nearly 500 more passes than Leicester. And they only had 5 shots on target.
What about your sleepless nights over Manchester City?
I know. Honestly, they had 5 shots on target against Leicester, who, as we've just seen, are awful. So I'm going to say Chelsea and City miss out. I'm going to go Newcastle and Villa.
There we go. Lovely. You mentioned it, Jan. You were at that. It wasn't one of those games you had to be at that made it more exciting.
At Old Trafford?
Yes.
Yes, I interviewed both the manager afterwards, and I had to give myself a bit of encouragement because there was only one question we had to ask them. how on earth can you play such a lack of entertaining football game?
Yeah.
Pep Guardiola went into his one-word answers.
Right.
We made him into 2 or 3. But Amorim, he said, I've seen some progress in this team. Yeah, okay. But he had to admit it wasn't not an entertaining game. It was like people looked at each other and said, do we see what we're seeing? There were times in the game, and you saw the game, there were times that both teams just missed losing the ball all the time. Kevin De Bruyne, that was the game for him. This was the game after he said he's going to leave English football. He's going to be fantastic. Unfortunately, he was like the rest of the team, unfortunately.
Kieran, you must have played in games similar to that. Are you aware of how rubbish it is when you're playing?
I mean, especially at this stage of the season, look, you have to take everything into context. For Man City, it's a bit of a consolidation season for them. We know they haven't been great all season, and United, you know, they have a story of their own. But they also have one eye on the Europa League. You know, I watched Arsenal's game, which was pretty underwhelming against Everton at the weekend, and I can't say that, you know, they have one eye on the Champions League without defending United. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on this one.
Oh my God, Kieran, you didn't even watch it, did you? You didn't even watch it. You're out gallivanting around, teaching kids in Miami.
He was watching Bundesliga on his phone.
No, I did watch it.
No,
I've actually got it on now. I've actually got it on now again. I've actually got it on now again in the background.
It's to get your one-year-old to sleep. There you are. Put that on. It's nap time. Get rid of that.
But you have to admit, you have to admit at this stage of the season, you know, they've got, it's a massive game for them next week. Not even a Manchester derby can take their eyes off of how big that game is for them with the season that they're having. You know, imagine if they go and turn it around and lift the Europa League. They're not thinking about a Manchester derby with the magnitude of that game around the corner. This is a chance for them to completely rewrite the script of the whole season, the worst season in Man United's history. So, you know, I have to defend them on this one a little bit.
I mean, will Manchester United attract the best strikers in the world? The answer is no. Will they then go for an Englishman who's done brilliantly for a struggling team? Then Delap could be your man. But he's not a finished man. He's like an English Højlund, he could be. He could turn out to be.
That's a bit harsh, isn't it, Jan? Because at least he's done it in the Premier League.
No,
you
I'm
look
just
at
saying.
Xerxes and Højlund. You're saying, you know, he's going to be the English Højlund. I feel like you're having to go in because he's English.
You, Daniel, you. I mean, nothing to do with that. It's just where you put the striker. If you hope for a striker that will come in and be a finished striker, a big-time striker, then he's not the guy. This is a young developer, and like I said, he has had a fantastic, good season for a struggling team. I think what is interesting for Amorim this season, he said it this week, and I talked to him about that as well on Sunday, that he has to make a plan, and the consequences of that plan need to be the players that he's bringing in. And if the Manchester United fans looking for a big name, Delap is not the answer, but maybe Delap could fit perfect into his system, but he's not the finished striker. Nobody can claim that he is.
Sorry.
If he stays at Ipswich and scores goals next... Well, he can't because they're going to go down.
Right. Unfortunately, your point fell apart quite quickly.
Kieran thinks he's going to score 36 goals next season.
I'm trying to think on the positive side and not come out of the obvious.
Leave that
But unfortunately, the obvious is actually true. Because you score goals in the Premier League for a team that everybody figured was going to get relegated, it's a free run with no pressure as a centre-forward. That is what it is. And that's what he's done. Playing centre-forward for Manchester United is a completely world apart from playing centre-forward for Ipswich Town today. And so, he could maybe fall... He's more likely, put it that way, he's more likely to fall into the same trap as Højlund. Because he doesn't have the experience that he can call upon if he does go to Man United and all of a sudden after 4, 5, 6 games he hasn't scored the goal and then the world's caving in on him. He doesn't have the experience to handle that.
Is it better than what they got?
Yes, he is better than
disagree.
what they got. But, well, they don't have anything, so how can he not be better?
Kieran?
I disagree. I'd take it. I'd take him at Arsenal, to be honest. I think he's got a release clause of what 40 odd million, which I mean is an absolute bargain. Let's be honest. And I think that the season he's having, the profile that he has. I mean, he changes Man United completely, and I think he adds even to a team like Arsenal. He's physical. He's been dominant. He's pretty much he's manhandled a lot of the centre halves in the Premier League. I think you don't really need to see too much else from him. He's also got quite good feet for a big player. He can go past the player. He can go left and right. I think he's a top talent, and I wouldn't be surprised if a team like United or Arsenal come in for him.
I know Kieran, I know where you're coming from, and I agree with your description of the player. I think there is difference between Arsenal and Manchester United, though, because Manchester United already got Højlund and Xerxes. They paid £1 billion to million to get him, whatever. Arsenal don't even have a striker, so Delap will absolutely strengthen Arsenal because any striker would, in terms of, quote, would. I think that he will fit better to Arsenal than to Manchester United because at Arsenal, he comes to a team that is functioning. His defined role is to be their number 9. They're creating chances. That is not the case at Manchester United. And we can criticize Højlund all day long, but wow, it's hard to play striker for Manchester United this season.